This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Hey, happy Halloween if you subscribe to that kind of thing. Larry Bailey, Mortgage Workflow Partners. Today is October 31st, 2023. I've got my Halloween costume to match my buddy in the back. So if you're not seeing me on video, head over to mortgage.community and sign up and watch this replay. Thanks everybody for coming. Today we are all going to be talking about processing like a master in Encompass. Should be a hot topic. We'll see who shows up. For those that don't know, 30 years ago, about this time of year, is when I started in the mortgage industry as a processor. And so I want to talk to you about that and how much has truly changed, which is not as much as you would think in 30 years. I'd love to talk to other folks that are doing the job of processing as everybody's kind of rolling in here. And continue the conversation on the community. The whole point of these meetings is to really talk about it as a community. Everyone's always welcome to come up on stage. We've got room for 8 others up here besides me, always doing the talking. So if you have something to ask or something to say, please let me know via the chat, and we'll get you up in here and we'll do some talking and figuring things out. So first of all, if anybody is going out there tonight, please be careful and be mindful of your surroundings, and hopefully have a great time. This is an interesting time of year, so with costumes and everything else happening, hopefully you can make it a good time. And I promised the community a picture of my outfit from this weekend, so I'll post that up there, and you can see how my makeup just turned out like it like it did. So in any event, today's topic is all about processing and doing that in a way that is not like hurting a bunch of cats. So for those that are just joining, thanks very much. Love to hear your feedback. As an administrator, as an Encompass administrator, it is extraordinarily common to hear all about how Encompass is not helping their day, like your day as a processor. And a lot of times I hear, as I work with other clients around the country, and whether you're a smaller company or a larger one or a bank or a credit union, doesn't really matter. What I hear a lot about is you're doing a lot of handwritten notes. You're working out of your Outlook all the time. You maybe are leveraging a POS outside of Encompass, and so that's how you're managing document requests and document actions. Sometimes you're working with borrowers that are they love the text, but you don't really have the technology to text, and those kinds of things. And then most importantly, the other challenge in processing, honestly, is document collection and then working with conditions with your underwriter. So whether that's breaking apart documents within the e-folder effectively, I'm going to show you a couple of tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, but then also managing with conditions. And again, if you're using standard conditions or enhanced conditions, it doesn't really matter. And not every company allows their processing team to clear conditions. Sometimes you're allowed to clear conditions, other times you're not. It just depends. But that's kind of the agenda for today. I'm just curious, is anybody on the call today, is anybody actually does full-time processing? I'd love to speak with you just because this is your topic, this is your thing. And, it's been a while since I've processed a loan, but as anyone would tell you, once a processor, always a processor. It kind of never leaves you. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and share screen with a couple of comments and a couple of ideas here. I'm talking around the e-folder first. Let's go ahead and share screen. And for those that are following along, I'll do the entire screen over here. Cool, it worked. So for those that are following along, who just got here, we're talking all about processing today. And the one thing that is really homogeneous, no matter what you're using in your day, whether you're using Encompass through Consumer Connect, or you're using any other type of POS that's out there. The one thing that I will always tell you is you've got to make sure you're making your document requests in a manner that is meaningful for borrowers to interact with. So having said that, I know folks that are on the call that are using Simple Nexus. I know folks that are on call using Blend. I don't know if anybody's using the big POS for that hand. And then I also know folks that are on the call that are using Consumer Connect. And so this environment's all about Consumer Connect. And what I want to stress here is that in Consumer Connect, just like some other platforms, are all about tasks. So like I happened to go onto a Simple Nexus platform. I was doing some testing yesterday. And when you log into the Simple Nexus app, it's all about tasks. And I think that's the framing that's important to understand here. And so what's really hard to see if you don't use your Documents tab in a good way is, first thing I always tell people is you can customize your columns in your document view. Unfortunately, administratively, you can't share that with anyone else. It's kind of a missed opportunity, I've always felt. But you can teach people how to do it pretty easily, and they can customize and add things. Unfortunately, you can't add everything in the world, but you can add important things. So when it comes to document management, I do suggest that when you have a document that's been requested or re-requested, you segregate out the things as a processor. And the reason why I do this as a processor is because I want to track. Now, part of the challenge is if you've requested a few things from a few different people and you're kind of following that along. And so I want to jump into the conversation of tasking, because I'm telling you, every time that I go through like a workflow review with any company, everybody uses Outlook to run their life, or possibly they're making handwritten notes. And I want to show you something I've been talking about for a while, and I think this is really helpful. I want to encourage everybody to check this out, because everybody has access to it, whether or not you use it or not, it's up to you. But it has to do with tasking. And if you've been listening to me all year, you've heard me talk about two things. One is enhanced conditions, and the other is workflow tasks or task-based workflows. And so what we see on screen is workflow tasks, and your team is probably not using this at all. So Luba, I'm going to show you a good way to follow up with the borrower or attorneys or anyone. So thanks very much for asking that question. So Luba asked, does anyone have a good way to set up reminders in Encompass? And a reminder in Encompass is relative to the thing you want to be reminded of, right? So if you use alerts, these kinds of things, you can create custom tasks and to set up alerts. But when you get into this, what we have on screen is workflow tasks. And the reason why this is important is because I can come in here and I can assign, as we see in this column, I can see how many tasks are open and who they're assigned to. And if I go into this particular thing, so let's say I'm chasing down asset docs, I can come in here and I can add what I'm looking for and what the description is and what their status is, right? Oops. And then I can come over and I can see if it's been assigned to anyone. And so right now in this file, it's just me and this officer user. So if I wanted to assign this over to officer user, I could. And so that would actually come over and automatically put that into the officer user's assignment list. And if I wanted to add a comment in here to it, I could. Why is all this important? The reason why this is important is because the status tells me what's going on and also when it's due. So Luba, from your end, in terms of when something is due, the biggest problem that we all have in our loan files is knowing when things were requested and when they're owed. In the E folder, if we use the E folder exclusively for document like dates over here, it gets hard because what if you received it, but you need something else? And I'm highlighting anti-steering, which is kind of silly, but let's say bank statements, right? So bank statements are expired. Well, what are you going to have them do? Go in and mark it as received? Well, you did receive it. It's just that they're expired. So do you uncheck it like, do you recheck it? Do you do this and do, like, what do you do? Well, the reality is this is how it looked. And from my end, what I'm encouraging is actually using workflow tasks as an alternative to standard tasks, because this is the way it's moving forward. You can create them, you can assign them, and you can track them with outstanding items. If something, let's use that asset task in here. If we wanted to come in and modify this, again, I don't own this right now. So in terms of the condition, so if we come over into what it looks like from the, let's go over to, do I have it in the background? I don't have it in the background. So I'm going to come over into, again, Encompass on the web, and we're going to log in as the officer account. And again, I know that a lot of folks will come in and they'll say, listen, we're not using Encompass on the web. And I get it. I do. So I'm not saying this is a panacea for a solution, but I am saying that in Encompass, we do have the opportunity to explore what is coming up. And that's kind of where I'm leading in this conversation is if you're processing and you're not really able to manage your day more effectively because you have more loans, because there's less people, those kinds of things. When you get into doing tasks, you can actually start to define how things are owed and when they're owed, and what's going on with them. So my whole takeaway, and again, you can explore this if you come into the task, we can leave notes and we can check for updates. And the idea is, as a processor, I want to be able to know what's happening, when something is due, and are there other things connected. And so when we look at this at this space, this is the web. So again, if you're not used to seeing it, I understand. But this is something I want you to explore as an alternative to just using the standard tasks, which are in here, which I've always found to be problematic forever. Also then the problem is leaving any notes. Some folks will add in notes. So if we go back to bank statements, they'll add in comments in here, which are very hard to see. And again, it doesn't update the status. So from a standpoint, that is just one of the ways that I wanted to kind of focus in on mastering. What I see top-end processors doing is they've got a process of categorizing what's happening in their file and when something is due. And most of the time it relates to documents. And again, if you have any questions, feedback, if you want to talk through it, let me know. Is there a way for a manager to see all the outstanding tasks for their department? Yeah, so if you go over into, so you're asking like all the open tasks for the whole pipeline, right, Luba? Yeah, so if you go over into, let's see if I log out of here. I'm going to log out of Officer. I'm going to log in as me. Bear with me 1 second, because that is a good question. And so if we come over into here, come over into the waffle, go over to pipeline, go over into tasks. So this is what's assigned, right? These are only showing what you're assigned as a user. If we wanted to come in and see all of the tasks that are open across the whole pipeline, that's not yet supported. So it's a in terms of what's going on with a file, you're not using this. That's still being developed to really come in. So it's concept, and I do believe that it's on their game plan, but it's nothing that's available today because of how the filters are working. Anything changes, believe me, I'll be the first to talk about it. Because to be able to see every loan's tasks that are assigned and who it's assigned to is a beautiful thing. Totally agree. But that's where you would come to try to manage it. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was document management, and I come across this quite a lot. So if a processor's coming for another, it'd be awesome to see what they're waiting for. Yeah, and this is why Encompass on the web just isn't there yet, right? But if I go into the file that I'm covering, I can go into workflow tasks and I can see everything that's open on that file. So this is where it gets to be a little bit of a conversation, right, Luba? So if you're in the spot, I don't need to now worry about what's in that processor's Outlook. I don't need to try to figure out what's going on in the E folder. I don't need to go look into all the conditions to see what's requested. That's why I'm so like on this drumbeat of using tasks, because we all do it. I see it constantly. We all do it in operations. We all have our checklists. We all have our outlooks. And the same thing happens all the time. Somebody isn't available. Somebody didn't realize that they already talked to the borrower. Somebody didn't realize that the borrower said they're on vacation, but they're going to get back to you on Tuesday. That's why this stuff's so important in here, understanding, because here's where you can see there's a comment. You can go click on it and you can add a comment if you want, but you can see the comment that somebody else made. So it's really easy to see if you use this effectively. It's easy to see. And you'll be on the leading edge, quite honestly. You'll be on the leading edge, so it's something to talk about. Document management is the other thing that I come across a lot in processing, which is to say that if you end up getting a full set of something, to go into actually managing that out, assuming you're on the new doc viewer, I did want to come into talking about the differences between document manager and file manager. So in this particular file, so if we've got a Maven fail up in here, and we've got, oh shucks, let's see if I can get one that has more than one page. Here's 4. So if we have 4, notice that you still got your thumbnails, and if we click and hold and drag and drop, it'll still move the thumbnails over. So even if you're using the new doc viewer, it's easy to carry things over. And if you come in here, you can modify just the thumbnail for just one. One of the things that I really stress about in here that some folks misunderstand is to be able to kind of take one page out is easy. But what if I wanted to take 2 pages out? Your easiest thing to do is to edit file. And so you can come over here and change what you need to. And then if you highlight these 2 and extract these pages out into junk, as an example, into the unassigned, delete those thumbnails after you extract. So you apply and exit, and what that does is it effectively creates a new file. Why is this important for processing to manage quickly? Because we all get documents all day long that we need to fly through very fast. And what I found is too many people come in and they double click a file to be able to manage it. And that's not where I want you to go as a processor. I want you to go into File Manager and manage it from here. Now, if you've gone through and managed the documents that way into getting these files into where they go, the next progression is the Document Manager. And so as a processor, typically what I say is after the first initial underwrite, that's when I start to lean on using the Document Manager instead of the File Manager. So the concept here is Document Manager is to really define the files that belong to a document as well as the conditions. So if I wanted to come in and I've got an initial underwriting set of conditions, right? I don't know let's go ahead and add a bunch of conditions. Hopefully one of the documents gets picked up in there. So if we add all these conditions, sure enough, we do. We have some documents. So if I go into Document Manager, it will automatically give me, if I click on the condition, it will automatically give me the associated document detail along with the condition detail. So as a processor, I can come in and review to make sure that the underwriter is seeing what I want them to see. That is all of these files that are in here, right? It's this file in with these 2 documents. So if there's a problem with this file, again, I can click edit from here. And if I don't need that, I can extract it. I can put it unassigned. I can delete, apply and exit, and it can get rid of this one page of this file that's tied to this document. Using Document Manager for me is a windfall because I can come in and make sure that if I am missing, I've got this document in here for anti-steering and I need to associate that with this large deposit. I know this is doesn't make any sense, but I can assign that document straight to that condition like that. I don't need to go into the condition or go into the document associate, I can use this this example here to be able to come through and manage the files using the file manager and manage the documents using the document manager. So notice if you go into conditions, you don't have file manager, right? But if you go into documents, you do have document manager. So that's one of those ways that you can go through and manage the status of your conditions and your documents while you're working in your input forms and while you're running with your tasks. So any questions on that? Just to pause for a minute. I've been talking for a good 18 minutes. Is anybody actually curious? Is anybody actually using the file manager or the document manager in real life and what your experiences are? Because what I found, like I said, what I found is typically to this day, we just literally did a workflow review with folks, and underwriters are still going into all their documents and they're double clicking and they're opening and they're managing it from here and then they're closing. And it just is, it's a missed opportunity for efficiency. Scala says somebody manager Lucy, I don't know what Lucy is, but manager regularly for post-closing as well. Oh, I use manager, document manager. Okay, cool. Candace says ours uses file manager all the time. I'm not sure what they know what to do with document manager. Yeah, so Hope's got it down. So Hope, excellent job, and hopefully the rest of your folks in your company are doing that as well. Because again, that is a huge deal to be able to do that. Doc manager all the time. Never readily used doc manager. Yeah, I would encourage you to, Alicia, I would encourage you to check it out. Again, the concept here is I found the most value is after the initial underwrite. Because before the initial underwrite, your document manager doesn't have any conditions in here. So it's kind of like, well, what are you doing? That's why in the underwriting conditions, it's there for you. The file manager isn't. So once you got your documents and you got your tasks, the other thing that I tend to focus on is forms. Now, if you've got a third-party plugin or you've developed a third-party plugin that utilizes favorites, kudos. If you don't have that, check it out. I know that Kenzie May just did a big blast. You're giving away 10 plugins for free. I don't know if it's really for free. I haven't seen the agreements, but whatever, they're saying for free. So check it out if that's up your boat. But regardless, if you're not using forms and you're using processing, what I want you to understand administratively or get with your admin is to use the input form sets over here, input form set templates. First one's always free. I don't know, Brian. Like I said, check it out. Kenzie May, great company. If you're giving stuff away for free, whatever. Check it out. See if it's worth your while. In any event, the input form set template, if you are not using this, I would encourage you to check it out for your processing team. Again, if your processing team, and go look, and if you're a processor, for those that are on here, how many you go into a file, and this is the first thing that you do. You click show in alpha order and you show all. And then you go search, and you're searching. And I see everything because I'm a super, but maybe you don't. But if you or your teams are doing that by clicking show in alpha order and show all, the reason why is because they don't have an input form set template that makes sense for them. So I would want you to really master Encompass as a processor. You got to make sure that you know which input forms you're going to. Now there's a lot of customization out there that offers us a loan processor summary form. The one thing that I agree with on that is for document expirations. So there's like a document tracking or an order outs tracking input form that some companies have. And I think those can be really smart. I think they can be used effectively as processing. So if you don't have an order outs tracking, I would encourage you to look for one. If you need one, I think I can put one on the community that's very basic. But it's order outs. I don't think I have it in here. I think it's in my test. But if you're interested in the order outs, let me know. I'll post it on the community. If not, I don't want to just blast it out there. But in any event, the reason why this is important, again, is time. You want to make sure that just like we saw in tasks and just like we saw in our e-folder management, your input form management is critical to making sure that you're not spending time flipping back and forth. And most importantly, if your Encompass does not have a loan processor summary form, especially with order outs tracking, you should investigate that. And you don't need much. Truthfully, as a processor, I'm spending time between our borrower summary origination, maybe, but usually it's a 1003 in the itemization and the loan estimates. Usually it's my VO, my VO, I call my VOX forms, my VO forms, my verification forms. You can get to them on a 1003, absolutely, but I choose to work on these in processing because I want to see the full schedule of everything that's tied to that institution. I'm going to see what's all there as a processor. The last thing I really want to bring up is communication. So there are plenty of ways to send out notifications to borrowers. I will encourage you, please, to leverage the new fields that came out with 23.3. And when you speak to your borrowers, you identify when the appropriate times that you can reach them. It's kind of like I call this as a contract with my borrower. When I'm processing, I'm like, hey, listen, I've got you tell me that you're only available on Tuesday at 4:25 p.m. Eastern. That's when I know I'm going to call you. Are you okay accepting text messages if I want to text you something? So if you fill in a text number in there, and that checkbox will open. So this is really helpful because again, you can, if your company is trying to figure out should you accept texts, you can use this as a way to data collect on your borrowers and be like, hey, listen, I can't text you, but if I could text you, would you like that? I guarantee 80+% of your borrowers are going to want to accept texts. And there's lots of ways to text out there. There's lots of options. Some of them are integrated into Teams. If you use Teams, most have their own website UI. And again, on the web, if I were to go back to the web, if you're using that, if you have a Chrome plugin, you can actually usually right mouse click on the number or copy paste, and you can do something with a Chrome extension to dial or to text. And I think that's really important too for processing is communication. So the last thing I'll say is if your Encompass does not have a communication form that goes back and forth between you and your underwriter, that's exclusive to you and your underwriter with logging. Again, I can show you an example, but this is like really, it's something to take back to your team. Most of the times where we see that there's inefficiency in the processing team is because of communication, typically with underwriting. Too many emails, too many Teams messages, too many phone calls. You need to work asynchronously as a processor, just like everybody else. You need to be working with this queue tester borrower, and meanwhile, somebody's getting back to you with other information. And that's really the crux of this, this meeting today, this sermon apparently, is to really go in and really explain that in processing and Encompass, I can do a lot. When I ran my company, my biggest company back in the boom, you can text from Teams, Rob, all day long. Go into Teams and I'll do because I'm going to run out of time here. Maybe I'll do a post. Don't let me forget. Like, hit me up with a DM, please. Direct message in community, and I'll post it. Okay. But yeah, I'll show you how to do that in Teams. Anyway, my point is back in 2005. Well, that's not true. It was 2008. Sorry. Back in 2008, my processors were carrying a load of about 100 loans. Now you might say that was that. It's the same friggin' Encompass, except we didn't really have the internet back then. We had telephones and email. We didn't really have texting. People couldn't afford to text nonstop like today. My point is, it's all about your workflow. And if you're struggling as a company or you're struggling as an administrator because folks are believing that they can't do more with Encompass, I challenge that all day long. And some of these things that I quickly talked about here, I can certainly explain more. Start the conversation on the community, start a thread, challenge me with the situation that you have. I'll guarantee I'll come up with questions and answers to help keep that going. So, I hope today was a little bit of a piece. I kept talking because there weren't any questions. So if you have any questions, let me know. And I'd be glad to explain it. So Brian says, CoreLogic is changing Flood, moving to Encompass Partner Connect. Dude, everybody's moving to EPC. Like if you're not moving to EPC, you're as an admin and then your settings, like come over to web version settings and go into services and services management. And you need to make sure that you've got your services set up here. Like all of your folks. Right now it says there's 200. That number's growing every day. And so, yeah, Candace says like it's actually pretty easy. CoreLogic service is sunsetting. And the reason why this is important is because, like I've said before, you want to talk about workflow automation. You can set in, process automation. You can set in workflow rules to automatically order EPC services when they're enabled properly. So it's really cool. So, that's a whole nother conversation about workflow automation that we could have at some point if you want. So good for you, Brian. I'm glad you're doing it next week. That's awesome, Brian. Yeah, please let us know how it goes. But yeah, EPC is where it's at. Yeah, we're working with clients that are using the new APIs, like developing solutions for them to use the new APIs for EPC, third parties, for like product and pricing and some document management, things like that. So really cool stuff. Jolene's asking a question. I know we're. Jolene said we set up a while ago. It's pretty sweet and easy. They're right from Jolene, so it's good. You guys have a safe night and be safe and enjoy and do whatever else you're going to do. If you have kids, enjoy. If you're going out and doing a Halloween thing, and you're welcome, Robert. And I will do the wrap up, like a takeaway video for Teams on how you can do texting out of Teams, in some of the ones that I found. So hopefully this is helpful. If I missed something, if you're watching this on replay and you want me to talk about something specific to processing, just ask. Tell you all about it. Everybody have a great rest of your day. Be well. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.